like I said, we had a lot of fathers. I can't remember any one single family. I looked up to my father. He went to work every day, and you had other men in the neighborhood. They went to work. You would see they would go, and so that made one day whatever, But I knew one day was going to be my turn. And so, like I said, my father worked every day, every day. You look forward, looking into the stands, man, and seeing your parents, and it makes a difference. It really makes a difference, and that's why I said the biggest thing about back then, there wasn't a whole lot of single family homes, man. 2 years I was in the service, I did my time honorably, did everything I had to do, because I wasn't coming out with a dishonorable discharge. But I
We're back with one more down. Today we have a guy that was a fixture in my neighborhood and throughout my youth, Mr. Larry Speed, offensive guard, linebacker, South High Warrior, class of 1967. This man is one of those guys that's a throwback to that era where you had real men that did man things. As a youngster, I always seen Mr. Speed going through the neighborhood doing various things. He may be working in his yard. He may be out for a bike ride or just being that stand-up solid dad, taking care of his family and tending to his business. So it's a pleasure for me to get a chance to speak to him, get his story about who he is and what his athletic prowess was as a youth. Playing for the South High Warriors throughout the latter part of the 1960s. Welcome to One More Down, Mr. Speed.
Glad to be with you.
Yes, sir. When you agreed to come on with me and have this discussion and this conversation about your playing days and your memories growing up in Youngstown, it made me think that sometimes you have to go backwards to meet somebody for the first time. And by that, what I mean by that is, seeing you as a adult man, post athletic career, I had no idea that you were an athlete in your day. So, when that information came to me and, getting the stamp of approval from Julius Libas, who was your quarterback, and he talked about how excellent you were as a player. It made me think about that sometimes you have to go backwards to know who someone is and what they've been through and what they've done.
Correct. You get somebody else's opinion about something, and then it kind of opens your eyes. Oh, I didn't know he did this or he did that. So yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yes, sir. And as you can see, you probably haven't seen me since I was a teenager, and now I'm sitting in front of you and got, I think I might have more gray than you got. So, I'm entering my season where, people just see me as a regular old Joe going on about my business and have no idea of what may have once been.
Oh, yeah. Our family goes way back, though. It goes way back, Because I remember your mom, man, cooking, man. Need I say any more?
It's one of the highlights of being Marthella Allen's son,
The other part of your uncle and your dad, man, their sports, putting into it, and then with the horse racing and stuff. See, that's something I always wanted to do, My father used to work out in a farm out in Canfield, man, and I was thinking, man, we're gonna move out on the farm, but that never happened, But yeah.
I'm glad you kind of leaned into that. So, when we generally start off our program, we like to kind of get a sense of who you are and what your foundation is. So, if you would like to lead with, your upbringing and introduce us to who your parents were, who your siblings are, and the beginning part of who Larry Speed is as a person.
Well, I lived on the south side on Plum Street. My mother and father, they lived in one that lived in South Carolina and one lived in North Carolina, and they came this way. And I'm the youngest. I have four brothers and one sister, and I grew up on Plum Street. That was my mainstay, man, on the hill. That's where I grew up at. And my dad worked in the mill. My mom used to work at the out Ravenna Arsenal at one time. But my brothers, they was all older than me, so I was the youngest, man. So I had to do everything, wash, clean, do I did all that. That's how I learned that stuff. But uh, then we used to go to. My mother went to St. Andrews, so of course we went to St. Andrews, AME Church. It was on Rayan Avenue. Uh, I used to sing in the choir. And Sunday school, you had to go to church or whatever. And I told my mom, I said, when I get 18, I'm gonna do what I want to do. You know, I got married, and then my wife went to Price Morning Zion Church. So then I went there with her, and I had a couple of positions. I used to do the sound there, the audio there. I was a preacher steward. I was a trustee at one time. So I learned the position. Reverend Jones was the minister, and he told me, he said, "You a young man." I was 20. He said, "I want you to learn all the jobs in the church and stuff or whatever." So then that's what I did. And so I went from grant school to Hillman to South High School. And eventually I graduated from South High School in 1967. And let me just say this: I played football starting down in the Pee Wees at Varney Rogers League. That's where I first started down there. Got love for the game, and we used to go over Brother Gaffright's house, and we used to have the electric football. Man, we used to paint them and put weights on them, and what we would do, we would sit in his basement, and he had a finished basement, man, and that's what we did, man. But we watched basketball, watched football, and the person that with position that you played, you would watch that person. And so that helped us the love of the game. Plus, I used to go to a guy named Ron DeLoach. He happened to be down in the park, and he said, "Man, y'all need to go out for football." And so that's what happened. Me and my brother Harold, we went out and we played for Star Chrome and Baber Auto. So that kicked it off right there.
So as most of the people on the South Side know, that area that you're talking about, where you first got your start, down on Plum Street, and then my mother grew up down in that area on Mercer Street. I spent a lot of time down my grandparents' house and over my Uncle Spike's house. The people today, we always refer to it as down the hill. Um, when you're coming up in that neighborhood during the late 40s, early 50s, can you kind of paint the picture of what that looked like for you as a young boy, making your way and finding out who you were within the structure of that community?
Yeah, because one thing, we lived on Plum, and there was Joseph right next to it, and everybody was like family. The doors is left open, man. You go in and out of people's houses, stuff. You know how you borrow sugar and whatever, and that was like if you wanted to call it, like a little city. And you knew everybody. Everybody knew. And so my mother and father, they didn't allow us to play in the street. We used to play on Joseph, and they used to tell us, "Go up the grand playground, play up there, don't play in the street." And that was one thing is to preach, and another thing that they preach: stay in your yard. You couldn't go out your yard. Stay in your yard. That was a big thing. You had to stay in your yard. I remember one time on Joseph, the ball went in the guy's yard, man, and we had to go knock on the door and get the ball. And then if I go back and tell my mom, and she said, "I told you, y'all stay off that street. You go up there and play in that park." And the biggest thing that was taught to us was stay in your yard. And then when I moved as a young man, I moved up on Barney Bray behind Idle Park. And when people would come visit, that was the same thing I used to tell them. I said, just stay right in these confines. You ain't got to go in other people's yard. This is my yard right here. You can play anything, do whatever you want in this yard. And that was instilled in us, man, back then. And back then, like I said, the community around us had a lot to do with our upbringing. Because if they saw you do something, they went back and told. But it was uh good though for us because see, we got to be able to with the yes sir, no ma'am, no sir, yes sir, and with your neighbors, you had to do the same thing with them. You didn't that was just was taught. And if you didn't, and mainly let me say this, everybody used to do it though. I mean, back then that was just the way it was, upbringing and stuff. And then everybody had their church or whatever, and we would go visit their churches and stuff. But that's how it was. And then our parents, especially like our fathers, and there wasn't very many one family homes. There was a mother and a father, man. And the father would work and the mother would be at home, cooking the dinner. My mother used to cook every day, every day. McDonald's, man, no. But that was one thing different. My mother cooked every day, and that was everybody in the neighborhood, basically.
So having that as your normal or what's expected for you as a boy, um, when you compare how life was for those times and what you see today as a seasoned man and a married man and a father and grandfather yourself, um, what was the expectation? um, what were some of those key points that your father either modeled for you being the head of your household or personally instilled in you and your brothers about what it is to be a respectable young man and carry and represent his name?
See, that was the other thing. See, you had, like I said, we had a lot of fathers. I can't remember any one single family. I looked up to my father. He went to work every day, and you had other men in the neighborhood. They went to work. You would see they would go, and so that made one day that and see, it was five of us, six of us really, and see. I was the last, a good thing, because I was a baby. They went to high school. They got clothes and stuff. Man, I had to wait. I never had a new bike, always had a used bike, had sleds and stuff or whatever, but I knew one day was going to be my turn. And so, like I said, my father worked every day, every day. And we had a coal furnace back then, and he would bank that furnace, man. We go to bed at night. He spread them ashes on top of them coals, man. In the morning, you just shake that up, man. That fire would go on. And so that was something that I looked for as being a man, and the role that he played as a man, paying the bills, you know, and making decisions, even though it was together. But that's something, and like I said, you had a lot of examples of that in the neighborhood. Going people when there wasn't a lot of deadbeat dads, man. There was that man was going and making a living and working and stuff. So I knew one day that I was gonna have kids, and guess what? I'm gonna buy them everything. They're gonna have new bikes. They're gonna, and I spoil my kids like that. But that's because I didn't have, and they explained it to me. Times are hard, man, and like I said, I was the last one. But I understood though. I understood it was my time. But I tell you what though, we had love in that house, man. That's one thing we had, and that's the one thing that carried us through all of that.
Imagine, and I'm not far off from that because I grew up with those same principles, and my parents have been good to me. My grandparents were solid and a really a shining example of what it is to be committed to somebody. So I can relate a lot to what you're saying. Um, when you have that type of security growing up, and one less worry in terms of identity or who you are or who you're being groomed to be, how would you describe how young men and young women handle conflicts with each other during your time as you're going through adolescence?
Oh yeah. We how back then, we used to play together, real close, and I remember one time, now we had a wall in front of our house, right? And me and my brother was playing. We used to go at it, man. And one time I was hiding behind the wall, man. This cat threw one of them shiny slates, man. That thing went around that corner, hit me in the head, man. Start bleeding and stuff, whatever. And see, Side Hospital was, right down the street, man, or whatever, And I got that scar till today. But what we had love and stuff, And then the people in the neighborhood, we respected each other too. We used to play hide go seek. We used to play different games and stuff, man. And then going up to Grand Playground in order to play in the summer, and doing things or whatever. So we had, like I said, an area, that was just like our place, man. And I never went. I never went over to the north side. I used to go to the Y though, but like the monkey nest and all that, man. I never really knew what that was about. People living in the projects. I really didn't. I never knew what that's about. Because my mother used to tell us, you go down Edward Street, you go across, and you go to that Y. You stay at that Y because we took our lunch, and when you get done, you come back home. But then as I got older, because my mother was a part of the Y, they had the mother's Y, and so she was a part of that, and that helped us upbringing too by going to that Y. Mr. Latier was the director, and man, he's the get that water on that diving board, man, to kick you in that water, man, and you had to swim or whatever. But see, that was like a role model right there, man. Mr. Latier, he was a role model, and that was something that one day maybe that might be something that I want to do because we did a lot of stuff on our own, from what we learned, amongst us or whatever. But it was that one camaraderie with the neighborhood that you live in. I'm sure that happened to you, whatever area you lived in, you knew everybody in that area,
Yes, sir. So, the boys that I grew up with, they're still my best guys to this day. I haven't lost any of my friends that I grew up with in Youngstown. That, the ones that were, as they say in this time, your day ones,
Right.
the people that loved you, the people that were there and for you, nothing's changed. It's just that the year goes up one, we get a little bit older. Distance has come between us in terms of cities and miles and moves. But, when we get together, when we talk to each other, it's just like I could go right around the corner and knock on their door to see if they could come out and play. Nothing has changed at all.
Oh yeah, and see that's the other part of it, and just like you had your neighbor, I had my neighbors, and I tell you one time, man, it's snowing because it used to snow in like Plum Street, man. You could slide down there. So one particular winter, the top of Joseph Street by the cemetery, man, we could go on our sleds all the way down Joseph Street, turn the corner at Oak Hill, and go all the way down to, man, Third Baptist Church that was down the bottom of the hill, man. And one day, me and my brother, man, we rode all day, all day. But guess what? When we went home, we got towed up, man, because we was out and we didn't come home, but we was enjoying it. And that was only one time in that time, we was little like that. Did that ever happen? And we took to do that all day, but we paid for it though. But it was worth it though. It was worth it. But those were the things. We used to play in the cemetery, go down the cemetery wall, man, and that was just it because it was the woods between the one house and the brick wall. We used to walk down and play hide go seek in there, man, And but it's an experience though. It was an experience, And we never did defriend our friends. If they was a friend, your ace boom cool, man, you would go down with them. Somebody came and messed with them, but that's the way it was. But then I learned further in life when I worked for the Youngstown Metropolitan Housing Authority, and I worked at some of the projects and stuff, man. And them guys, man, they didn't. He could be your buddy, man. They got pistol whipped the guy, whatever. But you don't do that. I mean, it's like when somebody is your friend, he's your friend, man. You ain't gonna hit him. You ain't gonna do nothing to him, and you ain't gonna let nobody else do anything to him. But that's one thing that I learned back then. But then, like I said, the older I got, and I was working in those areas and stuff. It I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. But that's just a different time of age. That would never happen. When I came up.
You know, as is the tradition and your pathway as you progress in your athletic career. A lot of guys start out with the rough and tumble or playing the street football, but when you get that chance to get into that organized facet of the game and go down into the Vonnie Rogers League and perform on those Saturday mornings, for me, that was something that it took a while growing into the courage to even get out there and try to play. What was that like for guys of your era? Because you all play for a different version of teams than what we grew up playing in. For us, we know the Sons of Thunder of Mount Calvary, the Penguins, the Braves. But when I hear, that older generation, yourself, Mr. Livis, DeWitt Underwood, talk about what youth sports and youth athletics were during your time. What did that look like for you, performing in Vonnie Rogers Park, and what was that atmosphere and the support like for the youth during that time frame?
So we first started out before we played organized down at Vonnie Rogers. Now we used to play in a person's yard, man. We used to call it slow football. We didn't go full speed, but we used to tackle. And that kind of like started it out. And then we used to have, there was the middle, which was Plum Street. You had the bottom that was down Mercer and down High Street. Then you had the top, And sometimes we would get together and go up on Carroll. There was a field right by the church, man, and play, wasn't organized, but just play. And then, like I told you, we always did at Vonnie Rogers, playing basketball, whatever. But then they was practicing, and like I said, Ron DeLoach was like, "Man, you and your brother need to go out," and that started it out because that was organized, man. Regulated field. You played against other youth from different sides of towns, and they had referees, and it was all organized. You had uniforms, so it was kind of like a version of the pros or college, high school. And like I had water on the knee when I was little, and I went to the doctor and they drained my knee. And he said, "That's it. You can't play no pee-wee. You got to wait till you get to junior high school." Well, we didn't have junior high school back then. Now the parochial schools had it, but the city schools didn't have it. And I used to take my equipment over to my buddy's house, and then I played, But the only bad part about it though, the difference between the schools that had parochial schools, we played 105, 115, 125. After that, you was it. If you was over the weight, you couldn't play. So as far as experience, we got it down here, but then we had to wait to go to junior high school 3 years. Then you get to high school, you didn't start till the 10th grade. So the parochial schools had to jump on us because they had the parochial teams that played on Sunday. We played on Saturday morning. Then on Sunday morning, the parochial teams, they played down there at Vonnie Rogers. And we had a lady called Mr. Diabolito. They lived on Glenwood. And so the back of their yard, they used to sell concessions and stuff. They used to sell candy apples, popcorn, all of that. Man, and it used to be packed down there. My father used to tell me he'd rather go down there and watch the kids playing down at the park than seeing them playing on TV or whatever, But that's what he used to do. He used to walk down there, and watch them play, and he loved that. But then, like I said, playing wise with the experience, we had to wait like 3 years, and like I said, if you weighed too much, you couldn't play. So you had to wait, and I think the parochial kids had a little bit experience on us by having that parochial teams and stuff. And eventually, when I was in the 9th grade, they brought basketball back, and then eventually then they had a football or whatever. But then you had to wait to go to South and stuff, and they kind of put you back, and then now, but once you got up there though, it was like, man, I could. We used to go out at South. We used to go out before the game started in our pants and stuff. No shoulder pads like the big boys used to do. We go out and warm up, man. I tell you, man, up at South, man, that place was packed, man. They had the betters on the hill by the press box, and then you had a fence going around on the one side where the track was, and that's where the dads would be at. Mr. Livis would be there. My father, they would up and down that, man. They didn't sit down. My mom, she used to sit down, but they used to walk up and down that sideline, man. But and that's about, you get your parents to where they would come see you. And what that instilled in me is then I had a daughter that played basketball, and I used to tell my wife, because I worked in the mill and I worked shifts and stuff. I said, you got to go support her. You got to, and that's what you look at. You look forward, looking into the stands, man, and seeing your parents, and it makes a difference. It really makes a difference, and that's why I said the biggest thing about back then, it wasn't a whole lot of single family homes, man. It was Macy. I can't think of any offhand that was single family. Just one parent. It was mostly 2-parent homes back then.
So you touch on something that's very key in terms of have or have not, and sometimes we feel that second class treatment when it comes to our public institutions versus the private institutions. Like they say, it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other, because on one end you can say being deprived in certain aspects makes you hungry, makes you want it much more, or makes you cherish it a little bit more. But like you touched on, that 3-year holding pattern that you would have experienced, because there's no junior high football system for kids to have an outlet with, whereas the parochial feeders, the Ursulines, eventually the Moonies, they get the benefit of their students coming in and having not missed a beat from the youth level all the way through. What were those early forays into playing football at South like after being out of football for 3 years?
Oh, it was a difference, because like I said, down Varney Rogers, you had the 2 different weight classes, but United Excavating, I think they were 125 pound, I think. So, you played a little bit longer. As long as you didn't, you had to be up under that weight, because we got weight. You had to be up under that weight. And I think it made a difference. But then the other part about that is, though, when we grew up, if you was an athlete, you was an athlete. Now, my brother played football with me down in Varney Rogers. Now, none of my other brothers played. I had one brother, man. He was tall. He had a buddy, Roy White, and them. They used to play, but my brother didn't play basketball. So I didn't really have anybody, to look up to, to do what they were doing. So I had to take people in the neighborhood, that played. And Tom Kerr was one of them, man. He had all the records down Varney Rogers, and trying to emulate him. But when we did get up there and we started playing, I knew Coach Red Angelo from Cheney, and even Knox out in North. And they used to say, man, if I was coaching in South, man, we won the state champion like Maston every year, because of the athletes. It was just pure athletes, and we didn't have that. And like even over Cheney, see, they had weights, man. They had a weight room and stuff, man. You know what we had? We had dumbbells, barbells and stuff like that, man. But they had machines and stuff, So when you got to that fourth quarter, when you got to that fourth quarter, you had to do a little bit of extra and stuff or whatever. And so that was even with the 3 years from playing, with the parochial, their booster club. They had a real good booster club. And so what we had, just regular weights, lifting and doing stuff and training and stuff. So that was like kind of like a up on them, And then, because like I said, they had a good booster club, man, and they were supplying this and supplying that, And I was in the booster club at South after I got out of the service. I was in the booster club, and we tried to raise money in order to do that. I guess we never had a weight room. I mean, I'm talking about with machines in it. Now you can get weights and get mats and put them in there and call it a weight room. And that's a big part of it. Because even being an athlete and just running, you got to bulk up, you got to lift weights, you got to get strong. So it made a difference though. It made a difference. And then when it came down to it though, it was all about what shape you were in, and you had to pride yourself in, and that's what I would instill in a lot of younger people, that as far as, and especially when I was in the booster club, and I would talk to them, and even in my neighborhood, as far as I had a hoop on my garage and stuff, and the neighbor kids used to play there, and I would tell them, you got to get in shape, whatever you're gonna do, you got to put everything into it. You just can't half step or whatever.
So, I'm gonna kind of pick your brain on, that competition and what you would have faced, and who are the personalities of your time period for your team. So, we had Mr. Livis on and got a great perspective from him being a quarterback. For you, you play the offensive line and play linebacker on defense. You had some really great names that kind of still ring in certain circles to this day. I've heard of Donnie Cram. I've heard of Russell Smith and Ron Scroggins, the Cleveland Kings. What was that like for you guys to come together as a group and try to work as one unit to achieve that goal of being city champions, or just proving that you were someone to be contended with when you guys used to get out there and go to battle on Friday nights?
See, it's a little bit different now than it was then. I'll tell you, back then, especially when you were a sophomore, you had to be exceptional to play when you was a sophomore back then, because there were so many good players, and you would practice with them, man. There was Alan Smith played, KK Thomas Smith played, and you had you had Bill Nikitis that played for South. You had Rick Buzzin over there at Wilson, and you had Mike De Niro over there at Cheney. You had some players, and even though I played with him, but you had some players, man, that you looked up to, and you had Tonto. I'm trying to think his name, but his father used to have the hot dog place downtown, and he played, man. And another name is Buddy Orr, man. Those were some names, man. And Jamie Rivers, Stanford Rivers, man. You had some names, Alan Bogan, man. You had some names that came before you, and then you actually played with them. Like I said, that we looked up to. And I tell you something. The part that I hate to repeat, but the part that the coaches used to say, man, if I was this South, we'd be just like Maston, man. And I had Jewish Livis, man. I'm gonna tell you something about him. I watched him in one game, man. He must have ran through about eight people, man. I couldn't believe it, man. I just had to. I mean, I was a guard, so I was blocking or whatever, but I couldn't believe it, man. That guy is a multi-talented, man. That guy can play every sport. But that's just the way he was, though. He could throw the ball, he could run, he could do it all. And then I'm gonna tell you somebody else, Cleveland King. Man, he was something, man. He got hurt, like I said, over in Warren, and when they had West Reserve, and he didn't say nothing. He kept playing, even though the coach would, but he kept playing, man. He played through all of that. He ran track and that, but he played through all of that. But that guy, man, a heart of gold. And I'll tell you who my buddy was Russell Smith. Russell Smith, man, played tackle. I played linebacker, and then we had Brian Hall on the end, man. So it was Brian Hall in the end, me at linebacker, and Russell Smith at tackle, man. They couldn't do nothing, man. We could take chances and do things, you know, as a linebacker. And one thing I used to do as a linebacker, I didn't like to play in the hole. I like to play off the ball. And then when I would read the play, if the guard pulled, if they blocked down, the guard pulled, you fall. And I wouldn't dive in that hole though. See, you get caught up in there, man, and then you couldn't get outside. And that's something that I learned. And then, like I said, I could take a chance and do something because I knew Russell was going to be there, or I knew that Brian was going to be there.
So, you know, when you're talking about your time period of playing, you know, you're going both ways. You're having to play special teams, and for you in particular, being an offensive lineman on one side of the ball, being a stand-up linebacker on the other side of the ball, and then having to play the other phases of the game, you know, how did you stay mentally engaged and mentally prepared to do all of those roles and switch from one thing to the next thing to help make your team successful?
See, I'll tell you another thing. When you get picked as a co-captain, makes a difference. It makes a difference because now they're looking up to you, and you want to be strong for them. I mean, my senior year, man, Coach Matthew told me, "Don't you get kicked out of no game." And so I wasn't going to do anything, you know, to you know, because they were looking up to me, and it was a chore, man. I tell you, guard, man, playing guard, pulling, blocking down, then you punt it, you was on that, you know, and then receiving team kicked. I was on everything. You know. But you know what my first love was? If I had a choice, and I told the coach that, let me just play linebacker. Let me just play defense. He said, "You want to make all city, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got to go both ways." And I understood. I mean, I could have been like, you know what I mean? I mean, I couldn't, not that I could say no. There wasn't no favoritism over one from another one, you know. We had a guy that I'm sure you said his name, Ronnie Strongman, played middle guard, man. That dude right there, man. he was a Bengal Tiger, you know. And there was guys that were undersized, playing positions that they shouldn't have been playing weight-wise, but they was tough, man. They was tough, you know. And Ronnie Strong was one of them. That guy, he was something. And then the other part, like I said, I was a captain. So I think Cleveland King was the other co-captain. But that meant something. You know, when you put that jersey on and you go up there and speak, man, I used to watch them upperclassmen, man, and it was like, oh, man, it was something, man. And so you wait for your turn. And that's why we're playing. You know, I didn't play when I was a sophomore. Then I played when I was a junior and a senior, you know. And it meant a lot. It meant a lot. It really meant a lot. And where it came about, though, like I said, is the coaches. You know, you have that camaraderie with the coaches, and then with your players, and then, like I say, when they picked you as captain, man, that meant to me, that meant something.
So when we're talking about, you know, the 1960s and City Series football, your seasons are 65 as a junior, 66 as a senior. You have Wilson, South, East, Rand, Cheney, North, and then you have Mooney and Ursuline also within that league. You know, what teams did you feel like were the stronger teams during your time? And then, you know, did you have other buddies or people that you knew outside of athletics that played for some of those other teams that you would get excited to play against?
Oh yeah, because you know, because after I graduated, then you know they had the teacher strike, and then Urson and Mooney got out, you know. But those were two of our rivals. But really, Cheney was really our biggest rival, you know. Even though my junior year, man, Rand beat us like a top, man, and a couple of them guys made all city on us or whatever, you know. But over at East, you had Robert Little, man. Me and him was real close, you know. You had Mike De Niro, you had Del Signor, and I looked it up. Brumgard played when I'm in my junior year. He played, uh, and then, but I didn't really have an interaction with him. Now Mogalich played because he played when he was a sophomore for Mooney, and he was somebody that I used to tell him, man, you got to hit him low, man. You can't let him, and now another Grady Main played over there. Cheney. Let's see who else you had over Rand. You had Bobby Eccles, man. You had Cox, Danny Mozzie, and North. You had. I mean, at least you had another person. You had Robert Little, but you had Jemison over there, John Jemison over there. You had Danny Mozzie. And another guy, man, and he passed not too long ago, and it kind of hurt my Ray Lewis. You ever heard of that name? Ray Lewis. He was a running back, man. He was another one. I'll tell you something about Robert Little. We used to scout teams, right? And so they used to have a play where they would pull the guard and go either left or right, right? Man, we kept watching film. And you know what we did that day? And I think the headlines might have said, speed in Eastern backfield, man. Because when that guard would pull, I would shoot the gap, man. I mean, I was on it, man. I had a bunch of tackles that day, but it was something like I said that we scouted that team, and we saw the tendency that they had, man. And like I told you, I don't like to get caught up in that. I like to kind of like flow on the outside and then make my play. Because if you get caught up, then you can't go left or right because you caught up in there. But that one particular game, we scouted them. Man, that guard would pull. I would shoot the guy. When they handed the ball off, I was right there, man, right there. But a lot of the like the Wilson, I told you they had Gladys Lawrence. He played. He was fast, man. And he played for United Excavating. Him and his brother played. Them dudes were fast, man. And then another person I'm gonna tell you is Raymond McElroy. He was a Bengal Tiger, man. And see, they hadn't won a game. And what our coach said, he says, you know what? North ain't won a game, and don't be the first team to lose against them. And I'll never forget it, man. Me and my Russell did a deal, man. Ran right through that hole, man. And Cleve McLean was hurt. Cleve McLean couldn't catch him. But that gave us some incentive to like, man, come on, we got to play. But Raymond was tough. Raymond was he was tough. And see, we ran away and at home, and we played Boardman, and then we played Campbell Memorial. And it was a Gilchrist over there at Campbell Memorial, man. He was one that you had to hold on to him and wait for some help, man. Because that guy was something, man. He was really something, And see, I tell you one thing. You talk about the schools, man. I couldn't go to no schools. You know how you be leaving, man. Go to different schools, man. I couldn't go to no schools. They go to them guys from South. They go there, man. They, people knew me that I didn't really know. You know what I mean? And we couldn't go nowhere, man. They point us out. We be back in the state. They point us out or whatever. But that's how it was, even in Cheney and stuff, But I tell you though, we had some good coaches in the city series. We had Red Ansel with Cheney. We had Clifford Knox at North. You had over at Mooney. You had Butchie was the coach up there, man, for a long time, man. He was a well-respected coach, man. Well, he stayed AD for I don't know how long, but they had good coaches back then, man. And only one thing I didn't like though. See, we was at home. We played all the games at home. Only time we would go to Rand every other year, we would go to Rand. Then we would go to Camel. We went to Boardman. See, but them other teams could come, over South, man. And they went at their home stadium or whatever, But like I said, there was, and I can't remember them all, but there was a lot of good players, man. They made, like I said, Russell made All City, Cleveland Clean made it, Lavis made it, Cox made it, and you had this Bengala from Mooney, he made it. I think Mogalich, he might have made All City too. But yeah, it was. We had some good players back then, though.
To fit and paint the picture around the things that are happening, as you're progressing through the high school experience, so what was a majority Black school during my time in high school, with the Southside becoming less diverse than what it was in its heyday. You have figures through that are sprinkling and fitting in within the scope of things changing. Your parents are a product of the mass exodus out of the South to come to the North for a better experience. You as a young man seeing the 50s, living through the 60s, and seeing some of that change in thought and attitude and the shift away from, minding your business, staying out of the way, and really starting to entertain ideas of, no, speak up for yourself, say who you are, don't be afraid to get what you think is due to you. What did people in your peer set think about guys like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and the things that were happening throughout the 60s as you guys were coming of age?
Yeah, that was an era that was a bad time, especially when Martin Luther King got killed. Even when the Kennedy, I mean, it was something that back then. See, there was a lot of white people, should I say, back then. We was almost like minorities. I went from Grant, then I went to Hillman, and then when I went to South, but there was no white black thing. We didn't have a problem in South or even Hillman. We didn't have that problem, man. Everybody got along good. Now sometimes when we play different schools, we used to have maybe a guy that was talking to a girl at this school or whatever, man. And I used to tell Donnie Cram that, man, don't worry about nothing, brother. I got it. Wasn't nobody going, because we were like a family. That's one thing about, we were like a family. And I said, I got it, man. Ain't nobody gonna do nothing, whatever. But the times was rough, man. Back then. When I say that, to say this, that coming up, there was the numbers. There was the racketeers. You could get a job. You could quit a job today, get a job tomorrow, man. It was plentiful. Like I said, you could quit 3 jobs, man, and go somewhere. You get a job. You could get a job. And it was us, like, basically staying out of the way. And our town was known as Boom Boom Valley, and that was where the biggest thing, because at first we were one of the 3. U.S. Steel was one of the 3rd maker steel in the United States. And then they gave us that name, Boom Boom Valley or whatever. Because we were between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. We right in the middle. And that grew up all around me, man. Like, I didn't even know. I knew it because my father used to do numbers at the mill and stuff. Or whatever. I knew it, but it was like an everyday thing, though. It wasn't something new, man. I went to Kansas City on vacation, man, and they was like, "Oh, man, you live in Boom Boom Valley," and they thought it was a farm town, man. That's what they had it, in their minds and stuff or whatever, But and then when the riots came, that was another era that we had to deal with, But let me say this: there wasn't a whole lot of I shouldn't say white on black though, but through them times that people was just nosy and coming in areas they should have been coming in, like around Hillman and Woodland and them areas and stuff or whatever, And then when they had the National Guard come in, that was something that never happened, So it was kind of like new to us. We sit on our porch, but that's part of the history back then, But it was different changes, in our lives and stuff, to where you started out working with everything, and then numbers came and things were plentiful, Then the racketeers, they had their thing, and we didn't have nothing to do with that, dealing with that. They blowing up each other and stuff or whatever, And like I said, jobs is plentiful. Then it got to a point to where jobs weren't plentiful, and it made a difference. And a lot of people moved, different side of towns, moved out of town, and people weren't staying here, then service, you know. Uh, I waited too late because I had college, and next thing I know, I got drafted, and I did 2 years in the service. I was supposed to go to Nam and didn't go for some situations dealing with the family. But then when I was in service, I played football 2 years and I played basketball 2 years. So my sports and stuff continued. And then when I came out, I had a job. I used to go and play in the suburbs or whatever, play basketball and stuff. Play flag football. So I did do a lot of dealing with sports. You know.
So, as you're going through these different phases, because, when we look at what kids aspire to be in our present time, you have the things like AAU basketball, travel football, and I think people put more eggs into one basket than young men would have in your era of growing up. So for you, you don't have that second opportunity to extend your career athletically at the college level. You're drafted into the military, where kids don't face that in this time frame. If I would imagine that it forces you to grow up and accept a different type of reality than a young man who's 18 leaving high school in this day and age. What were your thoughts about, having to give that time and that service and the potential of being pulled into war at such a young age?
Like I said, they had a draft back then. And you got drafted, and like I said, I got drafted. I had a buddy named Alan Thomas, and I had a job on 422 at this pipe plant. I didn't have a car, so he used to take me to work, man. And then he got a job. And then one day he told me, he said, "You know what? Let's join the Marines, buddy, buddy." I said, "What?" He said, "Now he just put it on me, man." So he didn't go to work that day. He went and joined the Marines. And my philosophy right at that time was, man, I ain't lost nothing over there. I ain't trying to go over there, because I had brothers that was in the Air Force. So it ended up, long story, I was in the service, man, and he got killed over there. So it was a kind of awakening. And I had another guy that grew up with me on Joseph Street. He kind of like did the same thing. Name was Martin was his first name. And to this day, they got a bridge over them in Brookfield, whatever, this named after him. I'm trying to think of his last name. But anyway, he went over there and he got killed in friendly fire, So, and this is why I was in the service. So I had made up my mind. I said, if I got to go, I got to go. That's just what I was going to do. And I had a wife. I had a young baby at that time, and like I said, I had orders cut to go to Vietnam. And then when my wife got sick and stuff, whatever, I went home, and then they got some speed that they revoked my orders. But it was, because you had draft dodgers back then. I wouldn't have done anything like that. But I tell you one thing though, the 2 years I was in the service, I did my time honorably, did everything I had to do, because I wasn't coming out with a dishonorable discharge. But I did that because I wanted to show my kids, with art or whatever, and people around me, that I did my 2 years, did whatever I was, had to do, whatever, came out with honorable discharge. But it was a awakening, man, where age didn't make a difference. Rank was what it was, man. People telling you what to do, getting up, man, going to sleep, and it was. Some people, I had a couple of people that went AWOL, man. They couldn't take it. They couldn't take that. That's almost like being in prison or being in jail. That's one thing I made up in my life young. My father told me when I was young, you go to jail, you're gonna be there, because I'm not getting you out. And so I wasn't going to do that, I was going to do my time. But hindsight, I probably should have stayed in the reserves or whatever, because I had, like I said, I had 3 other brothers. They all did 20 years. The 2 of them did 30, but they was in the Air Force, different branches or whatever. But one thing about that, see, it'll make you get in that service, brother. It'll make you a man. It will make you a man.
So, as you're contending with those things and thinking about what your life is in the midst of that, and what you're hoping to make it back to. You mentioned that you have a young wife, you're a new father. When you take that on, being a young man and uh, asking someone else to follow you and build a life with you, and add on to your family lineage. Why was that important to you at that time, at such a young age, to want to be a husband, to want to be a father, and want to do the right things, and create a life for yourself that people could respect?
See, that was all upbringing. What I was telling you about upbringing. Like I said, I had a young wife, a young baby, and so I had to provide for them, you know. And it was the biggest part was, it was like, as if I did have to go to Nam, was coming back home, and see, coming back home to him, and you away from him, because my wife didn't live with me when I was in New Jersey. She didn't live with me. She stayed in my mother-in-law's house, and that's why we lived at, whatever we get out. But that was something that I was looking forward to, and a lot of people got that taken away from them. They never had that chance, to do that before they came over, before they had to go into service and stuff, And you think about that though. You think about that. But that was my upbringing, man. Like, my father was a father, and the people around me in my neighborhood, they were fathers, and so that's what I knew. I knew that. I knew a man and a wife. I didn't know it was just one, just a wife and no man in the household. Because, like I said, the majority of the people that I grew up, they have fathers and mothers in the same household, and a lot of that came after that, But and that's something that I wanted to be. I wanted to be a father. Uh,
Now, so when I hear that from a man like you, it doesn't surprise me, because, that's what you guys grew up seeing. That's what you were raised around, and it was a normal experience. And, the thing that I respect a lot about that generation before me is, you don't do things halfway. If you say that you're gonna do something, or you give your word on something, to the best of your ability and men of your age ability, you live up to that. My generation, it's a little hit and miss. Some of us follow through, some of us can't make it to the finish line. And then when you look at some of the things that you see on social media, the way that information is presented to us, the reality TV, all the different messages that people are exposed to, those values are eroded, because there's just too many choices, too many options, too many people saying something but not saying anything. Um, when you think back to that time period where you're starting out on that endeavor, and then you're coming up on 55 years of marriage at this point. When you reflect back over all of that, um, you know is it as easy as it sounds to get from that beginning point to that end point, or do you have to develop and change and mold yourself along the way and adapt?
Role models that's what I want to say before. Role models has a lot to do with it. When you have role models, uh, like you said, I've been married 55 years. It's not easy. It's not easy. You have ups and you have downs. You know, uh, you gotta have a good relationship, camaraderie that you have to have. And I didn't look at it as being that I'm running everything, because it's a together thing. It's not one, versus the other. So what happened was, uh, that's the way my dad was, and I had my brothers and stuff was like that. Like I said, in the neighborhood, and the biggest thing about marriage and longevity that you have to agree with each other, and you have to do things together. It can't be just one is doing everything because you need help. That's the helpmate. Your wife is the helpmate. So you need help at doing that, you know. And that's one thing that when the meals went down, you know, I had a guy that lived on the east side. His wife was a school teacher. My wife was working. We both used to go to the employment office. And me and him could talk because he was in my shoes and I was in his shoes. We had somebody that was working. We weren't working. And I'm the man. I'm the breadwinner, man. You know what I mean? That was big for me. That was tough for me. And if I didn't have those role models, because it's not easy, uh, when you got the woman bringing the money in, and I was a house husband back then, man. My wife used to work. I washed, clean. I did all of that, man. I had a doctor. My baby. I used to take her to the doctor. Right? I had a woman doctor, and she said, "Well, your daughter was young. Where your wife at?" I said, "At work." She said, "What?" I said, "At work." So why am I have her take off and bring her when I'm off? She couldn't understand that. She couldn't understand it. It was another guy with the same thing, man. He had his daughter, man. We was both there. And that doctor couldn't understand that. I said, why have my wife take off when I could do it? So the roles reversed. The roles actually reversed. And so uh, I knew the difference. And I tell you, for a man to go through that, it's rough, bro. It's rough. And like I said, I knew a guy was in the same shoes as me because his wife worked and he did, man. And that was hard. That was a hard part of my life when that happened. And so that made me get out trying to get jobs. And now here came the discrimination part. You want to say a lot of guys that I worked in the mill, man. They was getting jobs, man. They was coming getting jobs. I went to the employment office in Warren, and we were all in the room, man. These guys complaining about so many people being in the room. Shit, all I wanted to do was be in the room. I wanted to be in the room, and they complaining. All these people in here, and it was tough. That was a tough part of my life. One of the toughest part of my life. That when meals went down, man, I wasn't working. And then I got a job at the housing authority, and that kind of changed things. Put us on the even keel. You know, uh, but like I said, my kids understood that too. That's one thing I like to talk to my children, as far as letting them know when things are going on. And then they knew when things changed. Now Daddy got a job. He working. And it feels good when you work, brother. Let me tell you, it feels good when you get up and you go to work. And then the other part about that is, being that when I was a union, a lot of guys took that for granted. But hey, I'm going to do my responsibility as a man to take care of my family. And you got to come to work to do that, So, like I said, that was a rough period of my life, but I got through it. But let me tell you, being married that long is not it's rough. It's rough. You got to partner together.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly and just listening to the major themes of some of the things that you're imparting is that, if you say you're going to do something, live up to your word. You have to be a teammate in the athletic arena, but you have to be a teammate at home to get to those goals, to get to that end point, to make good on the things that you promised, that you said you were going to do in the beginning, and be there for each other along the way. And you'll be happy with the result in the end, if I'm following you correctly.
Correct. That's correct. That's correct. You take all that when you were younger, coming up, and what you seeing around you. Now, I guess in a different age now, if you see there ain't no father in the house, and not showing you things. So the mother is raising them up, and you don't see that out working and stuff, because mother can't be a father. A mother can't be a father. Even though, moms is, you love your moms, man, and moms take a big part of that up. But you got to be a father. And a lot of these guys, they not fathers. They think they can make a baby, that they're a father. That ain't got nothing to do with it. That ain't got nothing to do with it, man. You got to be able to take care of that child, you know. And so that, like I said, that had a lot to do with all of that. All that, and see that's what people look at that, man. And you have somebody got that longevity, but it's like I said, it wasn't easy. Believe me, it wasn't easy, man. You got your ups and downs, but through it all, like I tell my wife today, through it all is that we stuck through all that, and we still together, and that make a difference,
So can we talk about your perspective and your opinion of uh, that Upper South Side area? I grew up in. You've made your home there. I think it's a great thing that you've been able to hold your place and hold your stead in that community and on that street for as long as you have. But you've seen changes and transitions from moving over into that area, that Canfield Road area, over by the park. What are the major themes that you can tell me about, how life was as a young man, seeing the city and that part of the South Side be so vibrant, and then to stay and endure through the change and the downtimes in the economy, friends, neighbors moving away, passing on, and then also to kind of see a little bit of life come back into that area and the resurgence with some of the community redevelopment and uh, trying to put a fence and preserve that area in these current times.
Yeah, this area was a good area, man. A good area to bring up a family because it's four streets, like the square, four streets triangle, and you get to know everybody in this area, and everybody would have children. And then when they got older, they went to college or whatever. Uh, then different people move in, the same thing. They would have children, and like a cycle moving. Okay, and it never was. This area was never a bad cycle. This was a very good area for raising my children in this area. And with that revitalization, man, I tell you, man, they are fixing up homes, taking care of the area. I'll give you a quick example with Idaho Park. This is the ballroom side. They had a double strip going down the middle, right? Well, they had tore that strip out, right? Took the little cabin, no, not the cabin, little shanty that they had, right? You know what they did? They put that double strip back in there, man. Put trees there, man, and it changed the whole area. I had a person from church come on my house one day, and she was like, "When did they do that?" And it brings the area up. And my daughter like, "Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that." But see, that right there, man, brings the area up. And then they're remodeling these homes. They're tearing some of the bad ones down that they can't fix. And a lot of people are upset from other side of town because they're doing a lot over here on this south side. I tell you, man, they're doing a lot now. We're getting our gas lines replaced, and then they got this tree replacement where you can get a tree on your devil strip or whatever. I don't know how that's going to work out, but they got, but the area has changed, because ain't no rundown, dilapidated houses. There's no empty houses. It fills up quick. It is quiet. It's quiet. Only people come down in here basically is the people that live here. That's the only traffic you get. Because these kids they play on the street or whatever. And ride their bikes and stuff on the sidewalk or whatever. And it's a transition, but like I said, it's a good transition because when I first came here, uh, we heard some noise around Christmas time, and they were singing Christmas carols. just like you see on TV, man. The kids were singing Christmas carols. And that really it got us, you know. They had a welcome wagon, man. They gave us a little care package, if you say, you know, welcome us to the neighborhood, you know. So we were welcomed here when we came, you know, and it's been that way. And I'm almost like the senior now. When I cut my grass, they cut their grass, and they asked me, they call me Mr. Larry. Is it time to do this? If it's time to do that, if the lawnmower ain't running right, they call me, you know, whatever it is, you know. But if they see me doing something, put my trash out, they're gonna put their trash out, you know. Or when I start, because I cut it till the grass stop. But and it's a good thing, because what it does, it makes the neighborhood better. You know, they ask me questions, I tell them, because it, you know, it makes the neighborhood look good. Now, once we get these sidewalks fixed and to get the landscaping from when they put the gas pipe in, you know, our neighborhood gonna be right top, man, you know, right up there. Because like I say, it's quiet at night, man. It's quiet. Now we got some deer come through or whatever, you know, but yeah, it's quiet. It's real quiet here. So I saw the change. But like I said, I was young and with my family, you know, and there's probably 1, 2, or 3 families that got, you know, got children or whatever, and it's not noisy. They ride their bikes, they go, you know, and but when the nighttime come, man, then it gets quiet, you know, and you hear that noise from over the park that sounds good.
You know, when you think about you spending the vast majority of your life in Youngstown, growing up in a great environment, having those role models and those examples to get you off to a good start, uh, getting that chance to experience the highs and the lows of being a competitive athlete, and then, you know, holding yourself up high and steady and being a, you know, a solid man, first and foremost, a good father and a great husband. You know, if you had that one more down to do over for yourself, you know, what would that be for you? Where would it be, and who would be along the ride with you?
You know, that's a good question. You know, and to think about uh, that question, it's tough. It's tough. One thing I will say, and I'm not gonna call it a disappointment, but college, man, I still think about that. You know, to this day, my wife said, "Yeah, you should have went to college," you know, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen because my life was successful. I spent 30 years in one place, and I retired from there. And I was union president. I was active in my church. Um, so really, uh, I would say, other than maybe college, is being married this long with my mate. 54 years. That's a long time. Because see, I remember when I was young, and you look at when you get 30, when you get 40, when you get 50, when you get 60, man, I'm up there. I'm 75 years old. Now I'm not they call old, you know what I mean? And my father always told me, he said, wait till you get that age. And the one thing that I have in this neighborhood, they call me Mr. Larry. That's what they call me. That's what they call me. So they respect me. I'm gonna tell you one quick story. I had my left knee replacement in October, and my neighbor. Now I know them. You know, they live next door to me, man. But they gave me a monetary gift. You know, whatever. And man, that kind of like, you know, because see, you really don't know until you know you can't do something. You know, and it it makes a lot of difference. That's one example. I'll tell you another example. I had a neighbor across the street from me. They had 2 little boys, and I watched them grow up. And they moved to Toledo, right? And they wrote me a letter. And the guy used to always, Mr. Larry, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know. and then I would talk to them and stuff. And when they moved, man, it was kind of like both of us really didn't, uh, and those are the things that really get you, that you think about, that I must have done something right for that young man to call me Mr. Larry. And I didn't know what he was saying at first. He would holler, Mr. Larry, what you doing? Or even my neighbor, because man, people get stuck on the street, man. I saved this gravel off of the tar. Man, I unstuck people and do stuff, man. I used to with the snow blower and stuff or whatever. So to sum it up, though, I'll just say this, Chris, is that other than maybe college or playing in the NFL, probably being with my mate, man, this long, man, because it's a lot of years, man, together, man. That's through thick and thin, through sick, through health, man. Them vows, but I just hope the legacy that I leave is that that I help people, and that's what I try to do. Even when I worked in the housing authority, man, and I would go in homes and repair them and stuff or whatever, man. I would talk to the single family, the women and stuff, man. The men too, I would talk to them, and that made a difference for me. To try to help them and steer them in the right direction, man. If I seen something going on, because they used to, little kids would come to me. I used to wear a long sleeve shirt all the time, even dead of summer. And the one young man told me, he said, Mr. Larry, why you got a long sleeve shirt on? But that was just me though, But that'll probably tie that up, Chris. If you can, I know you can understand that, but that's just living as long as I live, man. God has blessed me. I've been blessed, man. I've really been blessed to be around a lot of good people. I've seen people come and go, especially through COVID. But that'll sum it up. I know I touched a lot of different areas, but that's just how I feel right now. It's kind of, after you talk about stuff like that through your life, man, it kind of fuels you up, and but I had a good life though. I had a good life.
For me, it's just such a joy for me to get to hear you and see you again, because some of what you just said on the end of that, when you're living in the moment and in the midst of being in your youth and in your prime, and you're trying to get to wherever you think you're supposed to be in your head, you sometimes don't recognize those special individuals that are in and out or nearby and around. And to hear, all that wisdom that you've gained over this time, it makes me sorry that I didn't sit in your presence earlier in my life and soak up more, but to get a chance to spend an hour, 15, 20 minutes, listening to your journey, hearing your perspective and your reasons why you do things, and just seeing that, there's still good men that exist. There's still steady men that you can count on. And listening to your story, the evidence of how well, your life has turned out as a husband, how great you have it, that your daughters have achieved and been successful. And then your granddaughter is finding her way and pushing that even a little bit further. I'm sure at some point in the future, they're going to sit back and they'll probably have nothing but glowing things to say about Larry Speed, and you can't ask for more than that as a man, for people to speak your name and have something good and positive to say behind it. And I think you've lived your life that way and have made that a point to put out front to people that you cross paths with. So I'm a lucky person to be able to reach out to you and get you to tell a little bit about who you are. And I wish you, good health. I wish you, peaceful days going ahead, and you cut as much grass as you feel like and want to. And when you're ready to stop, sit down. You don't have to apologize to nobody.
You know what I tell them, Chris? They be saying, "You need to stop cutting grass." I said, "You know, the Lord will tell me when to stop. When he tell me it's time."